Happy Sunday to the Crypto ZX family. We're going to be taking a look at the broader market, giving you guys a daily market analysis update. So, whether you're holding altcoins, Bitcoin, this does, impact pretty much the entire market. So, we kind of sit together every single day. I give you guys a little bit of a, market visual to see what's really going on. But a lot has happened once again. If you're looking across the board, today is Sunday. Obviously, we're in a weekend. One thing to keep in mind is that CME futures are closed over the weekend, so more manipulation than usual. But Bitcoin is breaking down right now. We're going to be talking about that. Before we do that, as always, just a quick disclaimer: anything on this channel is not financial advice. Always do your own due diligence and research when you are investing in crypto. So, once again, a major sea of red across the board. A few coins that are up. Aster, gaining a lot of momentum. It actually doesn't really have an impact on this market retracement. I did make a separate Aster update if you did see that, but again, majority of the market is down right now. Look at it on a weekly time frame, look at it on a monthly time frame. There is significant amount of pullback across the board. Well, let's take a closer look and see what's happening. The valuation of the entire market is down about 2%, almost, give or take. Looking across the board, as you could see, everything seems to be down right now, specifically over the last 7 days. That's what I want you guys to be looking at. Pretty much everything down double digits. But again, as I highlighted to you guys before, if you look at it from a monthly perspective, we are seeing substantial pullback for coins. But take a look at what Hunter says. I did mention this in my XRP update last night. If you did not end up watching it, I want you guys to keep this in mind, and I want to kind of discuss a little bit more on this specific thing. So you could see Hunter says we talk about 4-year cycles, but the reality is that the model is based on a past era of crypto. Since the launch of the Bitcoin ETFs, a new administration, we've entered a new market structure, new players, new dynamics, new reasons people buy and sell. So pretty much kind of reflecting that the new state that we're in is completely different from the previous cycle. And I did even mention this in my XRP update. People make the comparison, well, every time around the end of the bull market, there are analysts and there are people that are saying, oh, this market cycle is different. But indeed, this time, one thing that is different that no one can deny is that regulation is coming towards the industry. We're seeing ETFs, we're seeing institutional demand, we're seeing Bitcoin seen as a store of value. This asset class a few years back was still not adopted by the big players. A lot of people were still skeptical on it, and here we are. So much happening for the industry and utility. As far as utility projects, there is a real world use case happening. So we're actually seeing the shift that we wanted in the previous cycles actually happening. In the previous cycles, we were still in the early stages, but now you could see for yourself the market has matured and it is getting to that mainstream level. But take a look at what he says. I think there is a pretty good chance that we've been in a bear market for almost 6 months now and almost through it. The setup for crypto right now has never been stronger. In a grand scheme of things, if you look at the setup for crypto, especially from a long-term perspective, I totally agree. So much happening right now, and there's so much capital that's sidelined that has yet to come into crypto space. And what's crazy that a lot of people don't understand is when you look at the valuation of the entire crypto market, it's $3.3 trillion. And I know, if you've been in the space for quite some time and you kind of go back in time where, we were still in the billion range, and now you're looking at it and saying, oh, 3.23 trillion is a lot. Well, back in the day, it was the early days. So if you are looking at those numbers, you were very, very early. But this time around, even at a 3.3 trillion valuation, if you compare it to the traditional side of things, if you compare it to gold, we are still very, very small in comparison to other markets. But one thing before I jump into the altcoin updates, as well as Bitcoin, you can see for yourself there is a lot of coins in this crypto space now. There's significant amount of coins now, and that is something that I want you guys to keep in mind. Like before, there used to be maybe like 10-20,000 coins even in the last cycle, but now the market has seen a huge chunk of new coins launching, and now it's very, very saturated. So in terms of altcoin season, I've already highlighted this to you guys before. If you kind of zoom out, if you pick the right coins, again, diversify your portfolio. You want to diversify your portfolio. Simple as that. If you're just holding one specific coin and, betting on that coin to, be the leader, then again, you are missing out on major amounts of potential profits that you could be making. And that's something that I emphasize on the channel, even from the last cycle. It's, basic economic and, financial rule. You want to diversify. Diversification is pretty much a basic rule that you need to follow. So pretty much what that means is don't have, all your money in one basket. You want to have multiple different eggs. So pretty much how there's like the saying, have not have one egg in the basket, have multiple. So again, people that pick the right coins, if you had diversified, especially if you've been accumulating since last bear market, you did quite well for yourself. But if you're holding one or two specific coins, then again, that is on you. This is where diversification, comes into play. And the market has become more tough, in my opinion. Before, we used to see because lower amount of coins, right? There were such low coins in the overall market, and majority of the coins would go up, and that's where the altcoin season used to come in. And this time around, the closest we have seen to an altcoin season is early this year and late last year. Other than that, we have not, because the dominance hasn't budged. Dominance is still sitting around 60%. Now, as far as today's concerned, you're looking at about 59.51%. But dominance is still really high compared to what we have seen in the past. So that's something I want you guys to keep in mind as well. And retail tends to focus more on shorter term time scale. Not all of them, of course. The people that are still here watching these updates. I'm not saying everyone, but majority of the retail tends to want instant gratification. But that's not the reality. And now this time around, the cycle is completely different, because around now we should be seeing upside. But again, there's still a month and a half left till the end of the year, so a lot can still end up happening. But take a look at what Bitcoin was able to do. Let me kind of get rid of this here for you guys. I was talking about how even if the price of Bitcoin were to rebound to $100,000, we're not buying it. But yesterday, if you watch my specific update, I highlighted one specific thing to you guys, and you guys have probably already guessed what I'm talking about. I told you guys Bitcoin is showing weakness. We haven't even saw Bitcoin rebounding maybe to even the $98,000 price point. Like, it was showing significant weakness, and you can see we came up to $97,000, pulled back below our monthly low at 94, and right now we did wick down to 92,900, getting closer and closer to our price point that I've talked to you guys about at the 0.50 fib zone. That's a 1.23% move, and I think we do retest at this point. Again, maybe Bitcoin is going to try to push back up to 94 as far as the daily candle close is concerned. But again, it's a weekend, doesn't really matter at this point. But I think the door is pretty much open for us to retest this key support line, and drop in below here gets us back down to our main target that I've been talking about at 86. That would complete the wave. So meaning this wave that we're seeing, let me kind of get rid of this line here that will confuse you. So this was a wave that I've been talking about around 86K. This, since the price of Bitcoin has been in this upward trend, we have seen, these types of pullbacks, as you could see for yourself. From the previous cycle, though, look at it for yourself. November 21st was its all-time high, and we saw a retracement of 76%, 76% from its all-time high. But again, I think the next obviously few days, few weeks are going to be very interesting. I am still expecting Bitcoin to get down to here, complete this wave, and then start heading back towards the upside. If it's unable to do so, if Bitcoin is unable to get so let's see, if Bitcoin is breaking below the 61.8, we don't want to see the price of Bitcoin dropping below $74,000, because this was invalidate this upwards trend, as I've told you guys before, which means altcoins could see more pain. But I'm not buying it. I think I'm pretty concise with my and I'm content with my overall projection. I am anticipating $86,000 price point for Bitcoin to be retested. Might see a couple fake outs before that, but that is, I think, going to be the goal, especially if we drop below the 0.50, and we're very close to the 0.50 key support. People were calling me crazy when I was talking about some of these lower levels, and I predicted this when the price of Bitcoin was around these key ranges. And your boy has been saying this for quite some time. So the sooner this happens, the better it is. And it's also going to kind of give us a little bit of a better understanding if we do see a rebound, which I expect for Bitcoin to do. If it's able to rebound from here, we start to, get back into this cycle. So again, I want you guys to keep in mind, after the consolidations that we have seen in the past, we saw Bitcoin, pumping up 126% this time around. And after this retracement back in April, we saw Bitcoin pumping up 71%. So let's just say, we pump up like 70% again, from that key range. Where does that put the price of Bitcoin? It puts the price of Bitcoin are close to $150,000. So in terms of a super cycle, in terms of whether or not this cycle is going to extend, we're going to see that playing out in the next month or two. You don't want to see the price of Bitcoin dropping below here, because if it's able to do that, that is going to be not good, in my opinion, because we don't want to see this happening. I highly doubt it, because of course, the outweigh of demand that is coming in for BTC, which is outweighing, the supply. I just don't see it happening. And at the end of the day, altcoins and even the Bitcoin overall, I'm sorry, the altcoins and the entire market run off of, Bitcoin momentum. So that's why we focus on Bitcoin. So altcoins could go lower, as I've stated to you guys before. If Bitcoin is not able to hold around the 0.50, which I don't think it will. Obviously, there's a lot of support around the 0.50. Maybe we do see a little bit of a bounce up to maybe 100K after retesting it. But, I think we are going to get down to this level. But keep an eye out on the dominance. If dominance continues to climb up, we are going to see altcoins, pulling more down. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. What are your overall projection? Make sure you guys are diversifying your portfolio, especially if you're accumulating around this time. And people that are accumulating right now for long term are the ones that are going to be looking in the future and saying this was a good time to be buying, because there's a lot of coins on sale. Big sale, of course. Multiple coins down substantially from their yearly highs. But let me know in the comments what you guys think. Thank you so much for all your support, and also let me know what projects are you guys keeping an eye out on in the comments. Love you all. See you later. Crypto ZX.